I would like to officially welcome you to the Wisconsin Institute for Healthy Aging's very first Age Well series presentations, where we strive to bring health education information to our local communities, both virtually and in person. So we're excited to kick it off today using the 8 dimensions of wellness to increase happiness and well-being. This presentation is recorded, so we welcome you to share it with others and view it later as well. So there's going to be a lot of resources and a lot of great things that I'm going to go over today. So feel free to take notes if you want, but there is no need. All of this information will be available later and is available on our website as well. So my name is Jill Rankin. I am the Executive Director for the Wisconsin Institute for Healthy Aging. And my background in education and why I'm talking to you about this topic today includes both degrees and over 20 years of experience working in the health promotion and wellness field. Most often over the past 15 years working within Wisconsin's Aging Network for health promotion and wellness. So really excited to be talking with you all today. A little bit about our organization, if you are not familiar with us. Wisconsin Institute for Healthy Aging is a nonprofit organization, and our mission is to improve the health and well-being of all people as they age. And we do this by bringing programs and practices to communities all throughout Wisconsin and also throughout the nation through a network of local awesome partner organizations that provide programs and services in relation to healthy aging for older adults and adults overall. We also engage in collaborative public health strategies in Wisconsin and beyond. So a lot of, in general, health education and awareness when it comes to aging well. So today I'm going to, like I said, going to be talking with you about the 8 dimensions of wellness to increase happiness and well-being. And this is a topic that is definitely near and dear to me. I think it's the most important base for healthy aging at any age. And all of these concepts can apply to all of us throughout our life. The dimensions of wellness are very often the answer that I give to people when they say, what is the most important thing I can do to age well? And usually that's what the answer is, oh, are you familiar with the dimensions of wellness and balancing the dimensions of wellness and how important that is? We all have our own individual personal wellness journey. We know that good medical care is critical to our health. It's very important, but we do know that the most important influences on your health happen outside of the doctor's office. So your own personal wellness journey and your own personal lifestyle plays a huge role in your overall wellness. So with that said, what is wellness? That's what we're talking about today. A lot of people have different variations of the definition of wellness. So I'm just going to challenge you. I'm going to give you about 10 seconds, maybe 30, just to kind of just reflect. Maybe if you want to jot down a note, or if you just want to reflect, what does wellness mean to you? I'll give you a few minutes just to think about that. Feel free to type in the chat if you'd like to share with others, but no need to do that. Just a reflection personally. Okay. Hopefully maybe a couple words popped in your head as to what wellness might mean to you individually. But I'm going to give you some definitions, what wellness means through the National Wellness Institute and the International Council on Active Aging. Both define wellness similarly. So it's a conscious, self-directed, and evolving process of achieving our full potential. Wellness is multidimensional and holistic. It encompasses our lifestyle, our mental and spiritual well-being, and the environment that we live in. Wellness is positive, it's affirming, and it really includes our ability to understand, accept, and act upon our capacity to lead a purpose-filled and engaged life. So I'm sure that a lot of the thoughts that you all had were much more simple than that, which is a good thing because this made it a little bit too complicated. But basically, wellness is how are we living and how are we engaging in our health for our whole lifelong process. So over the past 100 years, we've added a lot of life expectancy in our country. We know that we've added additional 30 years to our life expectancy, and that's through the information comes from the International Council on Active Aging. But the challenge is to ensure quality of life, because I'm pretty sure that not all of us would want to live to 100 if that meant being in pain or being in ill health. So how can we build quality of life? And that's really where wellness comes in, is how are we living every day and how do we feel? So mindfully focusing on our wellness in our lives, it does build resilience and it does enable us to thrive amidst both our challenges and our joys in life. So in order to achieve optimal wellness, how do we do it? So one is must have a balance actually within each of the dimensions of wellness. And these dimensions that I'm going to go through with you today, I'm going to go through each dimension one by one, provide you with a definition of what it means and what things to consider, and then have some tips and strategies and resources for each one of those dimensions. But each dimension is going to have an impact on the other. So this all interwoven and intertwined, and you're going to be able to see that in our discussion today, and really ultimately our entire well-being. So a lot of times the things that we may do for one dimension are going to assist or maybe harm another dimension, depending on how that all plays out. And that's why we're talking about balance a lot, because none of us are going to be perfect in every single dimension of wellness. There's going to be some points in your life where you're going to have really great, maybe emotional wellness, and that dimension is really high, and maybe not so great on the social end of things, or vice versa. You're going to just have different balances at different points, and that's okay. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to have equal balance in every single one of the dimensions. It just means constantly assessing where am I at in each of those categories, and where do I have room to grow, and where would I like to grow, and maybe a certain dimension of wellness isn't a priority for you at a certain point in life, and others are. But achieving that balance and constantly assessing is really important, and that can vary day to day, can vary year to year, or just different time periods in your life. But each individual is going to have their own unique balance. So what works for one person isn't necessarily going to work for another person. And your assessment of where you're at is also going to be based on your own experience and how you feel. So this is a very personal journey that you're going to take. So what are the 8 dimensions of wellness? So we have all of these dimensions of wellness are listed on the Wisconsin Institute for Healthy Aging on our website. So feel free to, it's going to be a much summarized version that's on the website of what we're going to talk about today, but it does have little definitions on there that you can click on and take a look at all of these. But we have physical, emotional, environmental, financial, intellectual, occupational, social, and spiritual health. Now these are 8 dimensions. There are other models out there. For example, when I had my undergraduate degree in wellness, we had 7 dimensions of wellness. I've seen 6 dimensions of wellness as models. I've seen anywhere up to 8 dimensions, and there's probably others out there that have more, but these are really what the experts in wellness kind of agree on are the most important, the 8 dimensions. So let's get into it, because we're going to talk about the one that's probably most top of mind for most people first, and that is our physical health. So our physical health is impacted by our lifestyle choices. So this is going to be a lot of the things that we do on our habit level on a daily basis. So how active are we? Like physically, what are the things that we're doing for our health? So how healthy we choose to eat. What are we choosing to eat? How much sleep do we get? How are we managing our stress? Are we limiting consumption of alcohol or other substances that may decrease our wellness and decrease our health, like avoiding smoking? And then also a component of physical wellness is making sure that we're seeing our doctors as needed. So it is part of that clinical care too. So these are all choices that we're making for ourselves on a daily basis, and it can get really overwhelming. So even within one dimension of wellness, you're maybe going to focus on some things sometimes and maybe not so much on others at other times. Or some of you may feel like, hey, I want to try to get all of these really, really strong in this physical dimension. So I want to focus on that. So like I said, it's very individual. So what are some tips and facts when it comes to this? So people will often ask, as far as even will say to me, for physical wellness, what's important? What should I be focusing on? Because there is so much. We live very busy, demanding lives. So what should we be focusing on? Well, lots of things, but we do know that exercise and physical activity have a profound effect on our bodily systems. So you can see the quotes on here from the American Medical Association president. If we had a pill that contained all the benefits of exercise, it would be most widely prescribed drug in the world. That just illustrates the importance of movement. And not only just is it exercise, physical activity, but movement in general. We do know that physical activity prevents or controls most common chronic diseases. So if you have other areas of your life that are out of balance or out of whack, maybe you have no control over the social component of your life, but you do have control over the movement of your life, or vice versa. You can profoundly impact your health just by the movement that you have. And it does enable us to really function independently, that physical component. And also, as you age, I will say that particularly strength and balance play a big role in your physical wellness as you age, because as you're aging, it does at all ages, but as you're aging, your body, you need a little bit more of that focus on physical activity and strength and balance than you would when you were younger, just because the nature of how we age. So it is really important, and I would elevate that at the top of my list. So what really does that mean? It just means means movement at a basic level. But if you're looking at wanting to make sure that you're getting the most out of your physical activity benefits, we really want elements to that you really want to include over 150 minutes a week of any kind of cardiovascular exercise. So whether that means walking or it could mean running for you, but any kind of movement where you're getting your heart rate going, you want about 150 minutes a week on average to be able to meet those physical activity guidelines for the most benefit. And then, like I said, 2 to 3 times a week for strength training, and then incorporating flexibility, balance, and agility. So all those things. And there, I'm going to give you resources later on this as well, but that's just a kind of a basic overview of what you want to look at for physical activity. Then you have other factors that increase your, or that you want to consider for your physical health, and that is nutrition. So nutrition is also extremely important. You want to have a balanced diet full of nutrient-dense food, and while that looks different for everyone, there are some basic premises that we know work for everyone, and the hint is lots of vegetables. So the more color you can get in your diet, really, really focusing on that. A lot of people get really bogged down by the detail of nutrition, and it really is very individual. So I have some resources on the following slides to really walk through with you, as if you're looking to meet with somebody to talk about what particularly is best for you as an individual versus somebody else. But in general, you want to make sure that you're decreasing those added sugars, decreasing preservatives, eating as many whole foods as possible, and then also making sure you're having proper hydration. So those are, like, if you're going to boil it down to the top things, that's what you want to focus on for nutrition. Then you have sleep. So you want to make sure that you're getting quality and quantity of sleep. So developing good sleep hygiene is really important. Quantity, 7 to 9 hours per night of sleep, but you really want that to be high quality sleep. And again, that is going to vary per individual, so you know your body best, but that is a general recommendation. So here are some general physical activity resources, and these can all be found on the WIHA website. So no need to feel like you need to jot all this down and get it quick, but I just wanted to just kind of illustrate that there is a lot of resources out there, but these are just good general ones that focus on the topics that we talked about: sleep, movement, as well as nutrition. So that will give you a lot more deeper dive into those topics. And also, I will note that a lot of the Wisconsin Institute for Healthy Aging programs, the WEHA programs, will touch on all of these components in the physical wellness category. Okay, so let's move on to emotional wellness. So, what is it? The emotional wellness is the ability to understand ourselves. It's really the ability to acknowledge and sharing feelings of anger, fear, sadness, hope, love, joy, and more. You can see the fun little stickers on the bottom of the screen. And if many of you are familiar, if you have small children or grandchildren, or when you were a child yourself, you might have remembered those little illustrations of, hey, how are you feeling today? I think we used to have a magnet on our refrigerator that said, how are you feeling today? And you could put the little magnet on the face that matched your mood. And really, that's what it is. It's training ourselves to be able to identify what we're feeling, and then to be able to communicate that in a healthy way, is really what emotional wellness boils down to. The ability to cope with our challenges that we receive in life, because we all have challenges, and then behaving in a trustworthy and respectful way. It does signal emotional wellness. And this is extremely important for your health, as you can see. So we know that emotional wellness and even just the feeling of happiness or positivity is an important component to maintaining our health. That doesn't mean that we have to be happy all the time or ignore any of the challenges of life. But in general, are we able to be resilient? Are you able to at least be in a state where your most common state is that positive view of your life and how you're aging? We know that the mind body connection goes way deeper than we realize. There's actually a connection between your brain and how you're feeling and those emotions to your gut. If everybody has heard of that, I can go into more detail with some of the resources later, but it really makes an impact. And many of you have probably experienced this in your life. When you're in periods of extreme stress, your health, your physical health will decline. And vice versa. When you are in periods of peace and happiness, then you feel better physically. We know that up to 80% of visits to primary care doctors are due to conditions that are caused or exacerbated by unmanaged stress. So our emotional wellness is incredibly important. So here's just some tips and facts. Depression itself is a common mental disorder that's affecting way more people than it should. And it's a worldwide problem. It's also a leading cause of disability around the world, and it does contribute to the burden of disease. And we know that there's actual physical biomarkers that we can measure in people's brains and in their bodily systems that show us that depression impacts our physical health. The effects of depression can be long-lasting or reoccurring. They can dramatically affect a person's ability to function and live a rewarding life. But the good news is that we know that the positive view of aging is just one example of ways that we can see this manifest into a way that it can impact your health positively. So we know through Yale University that study participants who said they had a more positive view about aging lived an average 7.5 years longer. So not only longer, but we talked about quality of life too. They had a higher quality of life than those with negative perceptions of aging. Now, that's not just saying, oh, that's just one example of how our brains and our emotions can affect our health more than just how we feel on a daily basis. It can actually affect our inflammation in our bodies and how our health really kind of plays out when it comes to chronic conditions and things like that. So we do have programs. There are programs out there that support this dimension. We do know that there are things that can have a profound effect on that, on this dimension. We know that, remember I talked about connectivity, exercise does have an impact on your emotional and mental health. Mind-body exercise classes are great. Even things like spa services are really good for emotional wellness. I know that can be very expensive. It would be great if we could all go to the spa at least once a week, but I know that's not necessarily possible. Wouldn't that be great? But little spa things at home that you can do for yourself really aren't just about having fun. They're actually, you're doing those for yourself. It's a self-care thing. And you're really, really impacting your health by participating in those things. stress management workshops. Counseling is really important. I think not even when we're going through hard times in our life, but it just in general to have someone to talk to. If you don't have someone in your life to talk to, counseling is a great way that you can have some of that talking, that communication about how you're feeling. You can see the rest of the list on this thing, but humor, having fun, going to comedy shows, and everybody has different humors. There are humor definitions of what they think is funny, but a lot of laughter and humor can go a long way. Music therapy, support groups, different social events, which is going to play into the social dimensions of wellness as well. So here are some great resources from the Centers for Disease Prevention and also through the University of Wisconsin-Madison. We have some great resources, even just here in Wisconsin, with the Healthy Mind Institute. So we encourage you to take a look at that. But really, like I said, it's really about what is working for you and identifying your emotions and then being able to cope with life. Okay, so we're going to move on to environmental wellness. So environmental wellness can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So I'm going to give you kind of two different approaches to environmental wellness, because depending on who you ask is what you're going to get. So really, it's the bottom line comes to recognizing our own responsibility for the quality of the air, water, and land that surrounds us. Really, it's your environment. So not just recycling and quality of air, but also how are we living and how is the environment that you live and that you participate in contributing to how you feel. So we do have a positive impact, the ability to have a positive impact on our environment. But we also have an ability to be able to utilize our environment to help us feel well and to help us feel safe. So here's one example is spending time in areas that promote health and well-being. It could look like being in a place that has active transportation. Are you able to get out, and is that encouraged in the place where you live or work or play? Having good soil to grow fresh foods, being free of toxins and waste is really important. Having greenery to promote and encourage that spending time outdoors and just having that feeling of being outdoors. I think one of them, a wellness friend of mine, always suggests 30 minutes of outside air time every single day, regardless of the weather, just to be able to experience the environment and to get that fresh air that really plays a part in it. But like I said, I was going to tell you another component of environmental wellness, and that also is where you exist. So your spaces around you are the rooms that you are in often in your home. Does it give you a sense of calm? Does it give you a sense of peace? Does it fulfill you in a way that brings you joy? And if not, what are adjustments that you can make to your living space or your working space or your play space that help you just feel more at ease and more well? So not only the environment around our homes and our offices and our buildings, but also the environments that are within those. So I would encourage you to think about both of those components when you think about environmental wellness. So here is a good resource on some environmental wellness things. And this is more like the kind of the ecology part of things, the environmental wellness when it comes to the quality of our air and things like that. But also just encourage you to do other things too. I mean, for me personally, it's making sure that my space is free of clutter. And that just makes a big difference for me. I have my children who are totally the opposite. One of my children likes to have clutter, and that's the way he thrives. So it's really, there's no definition of what environmental wellness has to look like for you, but just taking some time to assess that and if there's any adjustments to be made. Okay, then we have financial wellness. So financial wellness is having an understanding of your own personal financial situation and then taking care of it in a way that you are prepared for financial changes. So again, very personal, but there's a lot of great resources out there to make sure that our financial wellness is where we want it to be. And really, it comes down to maintaining balance, being comfortable with where your money comes from and where it's going. if you can think back to a time where you were maybe financially stressed and how that impacted your physical health and impacted your mental health and probably even your environmental health. And I'm just bringing up just the other dimensions that we talked about before. But if you can see how financial stress, even if it's not the amount of money that you have, but it could be other factors surrounding your financial situation, how that affects another dimension of wellness. So we want to make sure that if you are in, you're having financial difficulties, maybe you can't control that area of your life right now, but you can do more in another dimension of wellness that will offset some of that stress and some of those challenges is one of the examples illustrating what I was saying before about balance. So different points and times in different parts of our lives, but we want to make sure that we're okay with the ethics of our financial situation, and that we understand it. It may not be in the most ideal situation, or maybe it is for you, but are you understanding where your money is and where is it coming from? So here are some 10 basic steps towards financial wellness. Wanted to keep it kind of basic because there's so much that you can do on the financial wellness side. But just some things that I would encourage you to do, maybe taking a class, learning about basic financial management. You can read publications. They have finance counselors if you need help with financial issues. There's so many resources now, obviously, with the internet and things like that. If you're looking for free resources, I know that there's a lot out there. So I won't even get into a list of them, but happy to talk with people afterwards about ones that have worked for people that I am aware of. Then we have sticking to a budget. So this is important, I think, regardless of what financial situation that you're in, but it means focusing on long-term stability rather than our short-term fun, but yet still balancing that and in budgeting. I know a lot of people will say, well, what does budgeting have to do with my health? But it does. If you can budget, this amount of money every single month is going to go towards fun stuff. That's going to play into your emotional wellness, your social wellness, and prioritizing those areas that reflects on your finances. I think I heard a quote once about if you look at what you spent over the past month, it'll tell you who you are and what is important to you. So if health is important to you, if your social wellness is important to you, then maybe you are going to have a line item in your budget that does elevate maybe some of those social activities, or vice versa. Maybe it's more in your physical health and exercise or things like that. But just think of it that way. Think of your budget as a tool that you can help enhance your wellness. Encouraging paying off debt. We know that that's part of stress, knowing that there's debt out there. So lots of different programs and resources on paying off debt. Investing in yourself, investing in your future is an important component to financial wellness. Planning our purchases. So it's not saying that we can't spend money if we are on a budget, but what are those purchases going to be? Things like looking for a deal, planning for the unexpected, savings, all of that good stuff is important. Knowing our credit score, lots of good programs on that as well. And then encouraging you to build goals. And that really is setting financial goals for yourself, whatever that might be for you, is important to your overall wellness. And then reviewing your progress, reassessing your plans and goals because it's going to change. All right, here's some financial wellness resources. So, things to avoid scams and fraud, estate planning, advanced care planning, all of those things come into your financial wellness. Again, we can find those on the WEHA website under the financial wellness resources. Okay. All right, so then we have intellectual wellness. So what does intellectual wellness mean? The intellectual wellness is the ability to open our minds to new ideas, new experiences, and it can be applied to our personal decisions. It's also the desire to learn new concepts, to improve skills, and seek challenges in pursuit of lifelong learning. I heard a really great speaker about a year ago at a national conference on healthy aging and really talked about the importance of learning things that are new when it comes to our brain health. It's not necessarily, I think a lot of times we think, well, if I was doing crossword puzzles all the time, then that would be really great for my brain. But actually, what the research is showing is that learning new things, anything that's new, whether it's a new habit, a new experience, or a new skill, helps develop our brain health. And that really is what intellectual health comes down to. It's not a measurement of how smart we think we are or anything else. It's really about just those new experiences and developing those new neural pathways in our brain. And maybe you're at a point in life where that may be not a priority. Maybe it's another part of wellness. But at some point, sometimes our brains are really going to crave things like that. Okay. So some tips and facts is when we are engaging in creative pursuits, and creative can mean different things for different people also. So what might be creative for me is going to be different than somebody else. For me, it's decorating my house is a creative thing, but as for others, it's more like thinking like art, or, there's lots of different things that can fall into that category. But you want to make sure that you're stimulating your brain intellectually. So taking college courses, these are just a few suggestions. We can take college courses if you have a local tech school near you that are open and have programs for any adult to join. Journaling, painting, like I said, that art kind of things, challenging yourself with different games and puzzles. But the key is to remember something that's new. So not doing the same thing over and over again. Not that it's bad, but you're going to develop those neural pathways better by those new experiences. Reading books, and even that financial literacy. So we just talked about the financial wellness component. So even learning about your finances and learning about investments or whatever that it means for you can be an intellectual wellness component. So a double bonus. A lot of these are double bonuses. Okay. So I'm going to move on to occupational health. And occupational health can be misinterpreted many times. But really what it is, it's getting personal fulfillment from our jobs or our daily activities. It could be a volunteer activity, or it could be what you do on a daily basis. But are you getting personal fulfillment from the activities that you are doing on a daily basis? So whether that's our career, or it is volunteering, or taking care of someone, what you're spending your time in needs to have some level of fulfillment in order to have high occupational wellness. But the importance is while still maintaining balance in your life. So, for example, you want to have good occupational health doesn't mean that you're working more than you should be and you're not balancing other parts of your life. It does mean that while your work, whatever that may mean for you, is important, you also every other part of your life, and you're not doing too much of it that it drowns out other aspects of your wellness. But we all have a desire to contribute into our activities. We want to make a positive impact on the organizations we work in, the community we live with, the people that we love and are around us, and even the society as a whole. So helping others, whatever that means. I mean, some of us are more bent towards maybe careers and helping others, but in general, we all feel some level of wanting to contribute to our society. So how are we doing that? Volunteerism has an extreme amount of healthy aging benefits to it. We encourage you, there's resources on our website to look into volunteerism and the physical and mental and emotional benefits to volunteering. So there's lots of things that we can do there. I do want to make a point to say too, is talking with many people. I know my own parents included. Some people will really struggle with this when it comes to being in a retirement age. Is not only trying to figure out what you do, but having the pressure of, okay, now I'm retiring, So I need to do something. I need to have, when people ask you, what are you going to do after retirement? And I know my mom felt a lot of pressure with that. She said, part of my occupational wellness right now is not having to figure it out, is not knowing what I'm doing. And I'm just going to be, and just going to figure it out along the way. So that removed a lot of stress for her. That plays a big role in that. It also is important to know that sometimes when we do stop doing something, whether it's a career and it's retirement, or stop doing an activity, maybe it's a certain time in our life, whether it maybe you're a parent and your children are now grown and they're out of the house, your occupational wellness may shift with those life changes. Some what we used to think our purpose was, sometimes it can stop. So we need to find a new sense of purpose. So that's where occupational health comes into play, and especially with the next dimension of wellness I'm going to be talking about, which is spiritual wellness. They actually are very, very related, but it really does come down to feeling like you do have a purpose and you do have something to give back. So here are some tips and facts. We want to make sure that we're exploring a variety of career or volunteer options, but also not overwhelming ourselves. But having a variety is good. Some people like to create visions for their futures. So sometimes that looks like a vision board. That can just look like something that you think about in your own minds. But creating a vision for your future or even for the present sometimes can be a real healthy activity to do. Choosing activities that suit our personalities, our interests, and our talents, and making sure that there's not, assessing what are you currently doing now, and is this something that is bringing you fulfillment? Is it something that, and maybe the answer is no, it's not, it doesn't fit my personality, my interests, and my talents. But you know what? Right now, maybe it really contributes to my financial wellness or vice versa. So again, it's not having to be perfect in this area or any of the areas. It's about just knowing where you're at and accepting it. So right now, maybe it means I need to adjust how I spend my time and my activities. Maybe it's a new volunteer experience or a different career. Sometimes it's just being in what it is right now and just knowing that that's where I'm at in this point in my life and being okay with that. But always the one common thing is being open to change and learning new skills. So even if it's not actively learning new skills, being open to that, and opening to that direction and the opportunities that come about in your life will provide you with some good occupational health. A lot of times it is a mindset. So some examples of pursuing occupational wellness might look like, just like I said, with that vision, awareness of values and strengths and passions. Sometimes doing a purposeful reflection is really important. Those personality assessments sometimes are fun to take, as you can say, or there's even, I saw an assessment a few months ago that was about what are the things that you value the most in life, in a list of a bunch of different things. And that can help you figure out where your passions lie, and where you want to spend the most of your time. Then expressing our values, our strengths, our passions through the service to our world. We talked a little bit about that. And then also continually learning new skills, new challenges. And I think that probably sounds familiar to you because we talked about it in the intellectual wellness as well. So again, a double bonus there. And then also assessing your life priorities to maintain balance. So I talked about not working too much if it's going to take away from other aspects of your life that's important to you. So including cultivating the ability to say no to some opportunities. So being open to new opportunities, but yet still being able to go back to that purposeful reflection and say, is this something that I want to fit in my life? Does it match up with my passions and my strengths and my values? And then understanding that listening for and following vocational calling is a lifelong process. Some of us may be doing the same thing our whole lives, or maybe a few things, and others of us are going to be doing a variety of things, and it's going to always be changing. So, no judgment on anyone's journey when it comes to their vocational callings. Okay, so now we're going to talk about social health and social wellness. And social wellness really comes down to the ability to relate to and connect with other people in our world. And you're going to see the word connect a lot. You'll probably hear me say it a lot because really because it's different for every single person, but how you connect to others, is going to be very important. So our ability to establish and maintain positive relationships with others, whether that's our family, friends, and coworkers, things that we may or may not have control over may exist in those relationships, but to the best of our ability to what we can contribute, how are those relationships serving us and how are we serving them? Sometimes social health can be about personal contact by you can mean joining clubs, traveling, things like that. With all of this with the isolation that we've had a lot through the COVID pandemic, we have Zoom, phone calls, letters, all of those things are ways that you can have contact with others. But like I said, sometimes our social health maybe doesn't necessarily receive as much attention as it should. And really understanding that those connections that you have with people, whether that's a deep connection or just an association connection, really, really impacts our health. And you're going to see that on the next slide here. Well, maybe the next one after that. But we do know that through research, we know that there's negative health consequences of social isolation. And we have whole presentations just on social isolation and loneliness and social connection. So I'm going to give you a very, very high level overview today. But we do know that when we have feelings of being isolated from others or feelings of loneliness, we are going to have impaired mental performance. We are going to have a compromised immune system. And there is a heightened risk of chronic disease and depression. We know this. We know it's been thoroughly studied and researched over the past recent years, so much so that the next little statistic that you're going to see here is probably going to could be shocking to you. It was shocking to me when I first read it, but the health risks of prolonged isolation are equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day, which is higher than even the negative effects of obesity. And that comes through data that we see all over the nation. Most recently within the National Council on Aging has reported that. But we do know that people who maintain their social network, their support systems do better under stress. And a strong social network can create a good mood and enhance self-esteem. Now, again, that's going to look different for every person. I know personally, my family members are very, very different when it comes to what constitutes social wellness for someone is going to be different than another person. Some people say, the difference between extroverted people and introverted people play a factor, and that's true, but it's not necessarily always true. Maybe if you're more extroverted and you like to be able to have that physical connection with people and you like to have those interactions and those conversations, that may not necessarily be that case if somebody is somebody that's have a more introverted personality, maybe not need as much, or maybe it just might need to look different for people. So it really is about assessing where you're at and are your relationships fulfilling you. And it's not even the amount, but it's really the quality. So whether that means you have one person that you can talk to in your life versus a whole network of people is going to vary from person to person and really what was really meeting your needs. And then again, it's about how are you meeting other people's needs as well. So a lot of thought into, when it comes to different social wellness activities. I know back in my college days, we had a social wellness challenge where we were challenged to reach out to our neighbors and reach out and kind of make that connection. And even if you weren't developing a relationship, just the fact that you're contributing to someone else's social health and social wellness and reaching out impacts your own health as well. So It's a give and take. All right. Then we have spiritual health. There's a lot of misconceptions about what spiritual health can mean. Some people can say, well, that's more on the religious side of things, but it's not necessarily that way. Really, what spiritual health is it's living with a meaning and a purpose in life. You're being guided when in all of your activities in your daily life by your personal values. So it's the key to your feeling of well-being and connection to the world. And you can see how the spiritual health is going to play into all the other dimensions of wellness that we talked about today, which is why we talk about it last, because it really embedded in here. But you want it to be able to have connection between what you value and what your actions are, to make sure that there is that alignment there, and that there is a common purpose, and just knowing that there's a common purpose that binds us all together. So what is your purpose? What are your values, and are you living that? So spiritual wellness activities can look like, this is going to be a very short list, but what can it look like? This is where you have things like some of your faith-based activities play into factors here. So maybe it's going to different church. Maybe you have a church or a faith-based activity or group that you are a part of, whether that's individually on your own or somebody, or like I said, a group or a church that you're participating in. But faith-based activities are an example of spiritual wellness, because they do give people a sense of purpose, and where their place is in the world. But it can also be completely separate from faith-based activities, and it can be personal meditation or prayer. I know my brother-in-law talks a lot about his spiritual wellness. He does 100-mile bike rides all the time. Throughout the year, he's a big bike rider, and he says, when I'm on my bike and I'm in nature, that's when I feel the most spiritually well. So things like that, and that also plays into your physical wellness, as you can see the connection. But really, spiritual wellness can even just look like that. It can be through mindful exercise. Yoga, Tai Chi for others are some examples. And then, like I said, experiencing those natures, reflecting on the sights and sounds of the world around us and the creation that was around that's built around us. So appreciating all of that is really important for our spiritual growth. And that's, again, going to mean different things for different people. Okay, so I just went through 8 dimensions of wellness with you all. Again, you can go to the WeHa website and you can learn more about each one. I encourage you to learn about each one on your own as well. Lots of different resources out there. But what I really want to encourage you to do is to figure out, how are you balancing the dimensions of wellness? So there are 2 online quizzes that we recommend. The first one is on our website. We have an 8 dimensions of wellness model, healthy aging assessment. It is based on the 8 dimensions. It doesn't say 8 dimensions of wellness assessment, but it'll say healthy aging assessment. So that's really fun to take. I took that with friends over the past, a couple weekends ago. I was at a friend's house and we took the healthy aging assessment, and it's different. It's different in different times in our life. So it's kind of fun just to retake it every now and then to see where you're at and just kind of reflect on that. And then there's another example that we have linked here that's on our website as well. And that is through a professor, actually, of mine in my undergraduate degree at the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point, which specializes in wellness. So lots of different resources out there. I'm sure there's many other wellness assessments out there. So feel free to utilize the one that's best for you. But I encourage you to do that. And it's kind of a fun game, and it could be just me because I love wellness and I feel it's just my thing, but I think that they're really fun, just to kind of see where you're at and then reassess. Okay, and then we also have additional resources for you. So we have a whole suite of programs through the Wisconsin Institute for Healthy Aging, and you can find more information on our website there, that you can utilize. And that is, sometimes programming and getting into a workshop or a class might be a next step for you. We have programs centered around physical activity, fall prevention, chronic disease self-management, and a variety of other resources on our website that you can feel free to check out. Those programs are happening throughout the state, and many of our partner organizations are putting those on. So you can find those programs, not only information about the programs that are available, but you can also find where they're happening throughout the state of Wisconsin if you click on that website. So we encourage you to take a look at that if you haven't already. Also, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration has a lot of information when it comes to that mental and emotional health. So we do have the helpline here on as well, and that's always good to have on hand for yourself or others if you're in a crisis. So we didn't want to fail to mention that that's a great resource for you, whether you're in crisis or not. A lot of great resources on that mental and emotional health. And then as promised, I promised you some nutrition coach directories. These are ones that I personally know are have the theory that matches with the 8 dimensions of wellness, and making sure a holistic approach is taken to nutrition and eating. Nutrition is a beast to understand, and there's always things that we're learning all the time. What I learned back 25 years ago in my first nutrition class in my undergraduate is totally different than what we knew now. There are obviously some similarities, but it's always changing. And I will say the coolest thing that I learned over the past 5 years in my own wellness and nutrition journey is knowing that it is pretty individual. There are some great concepts to learn, but it is very individual. So if you have the resources to do so, I encourage you to check out a nutrition coach. Even me personally, I am in wellness every day, but I hired a nutrition coach just to kind of see where I was at, see what maybe foods, even healthy foods, may or may not be reacting with me, things like that. So just encourage you to be able to look at your own personal wellness journey and utilize those resources. And then we have information from the International Council on Active Aging that will provide some good information on physical activity and lots of great things. We have good things on our website as well. Also want to point out, we don't have it on the slide, but through the wihealthyaging.org, we do have our Falls Free Wisconsin website that also provides some great strength and balance activity exercises as you're aging. So we feel free to check out that resource as well. And if anybody has that handy and wants to type that into the chat, that would be great if you can do that. Then we have the National Council on Aging is all things related to healthy aging. They provide a lot of resources nationally, so that's also a great resource for you to check out. Okay, so I gave you a lot of information, but now I have a little bit of fun. We want to provide you with a few minutes to click on the WUFU link right here to provide us some feedback about wellness in general, healthy aging programs, and how you thought the presentation applied to you today. So we encourage you to give us that feedback. And then if you do, you will be entered in to win a t-shirt. And this is our very first unveiling of the Wisconsin Institute for Healthy Aging t-shirts that we have available. So they will be available for sale in the future. But right now, if you'd like to win one and provide us that feedback, I'm going to give you a couple minutes just to jot down the address to be able to do that. You don't necessarily have to do it right now, but it would be great if you did. If you want to jot down that address, I think it's in the chat as well for you to be able to provide us with that feedback. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide. So hopefully you got that. Feel free to reach out if you did not get that link. And I think it's in the chat, like I said, as well. But I want to open it up for questions and answers at this point. So if there is a burning question that you have about the 8 dimensions of wellness, feel free to type that in the chat. And Erin, if you are with us, if you would like to read those questions, that would be great.
Yeah, there is one question in the chat. Do you have resources to find a general doctor that specializes in elderly patients?
That's great. If you want to type in your email into the chat, we'll be happy to connect with you. And it'll obviously depend on your community, but we can do the best we can. I know specifically here where I am in Portage County, there's definitely some people that I could recommend, but depending on the area of the state, we can definitely see what we can do to connect you with those resources. Any other questions coming through?
There's a question on, will copies of the slides be available on the website? They will be available on the website under Age Well and the Age Well series tab. They'll also be sent out to all attendees today after the webinar too.
Wonderful. If anybody has some tips that they want to share with others too, we encourage that as well throughout the chat. If you have any good resources. Okay.
Are there any healthy cooking classes available?
Ooh, yes. The short answer is yes. There's lots of resources available. I know UW Extension does offer a lot of resources. That's the first one that comes to mind, that I would encourage you to check out your local UW Extension office to see what they have available. But feel free to, again, put your email in the chat and we can connect you with additional resources on nutrition.
And then the last question I'm seeing will lead us right into our next slide on what are the future webinars that are coming up.
Wow, that's a great segue. Okay, I do actually have one more slide on that. So we have another Age Well series presentation coming up on May 23rd from 10:30 to 11:30 a.m. And you can see the flyer for it on your screen there. Because you had registered for this webinar, you will be on our list to email other Age Well series presentations. So please watch for that in your emails. If you're not already, will be subscribed to receive our Healthy Aging newsletter, and that is an online newsletter that provides overall general health education information for aging well. And in that newsletter will be future Age Well series topics and presentations. So like I said, some of them will be virtually for anyone to attend, and some of them will be in person in local communities throughout the state. So this one will be available on May 23rd. So we encourage you to keep an eye on those. And if you have requests for certain presentations or topics or areas, we're happy to take those requests as well.
Yeah, it's just another plug to complete the feedback form from today. And one of the questions is if you have any recommendations for future webinars. In addition to the May webinar, we also have our June webinar tentatively scheduled, and the topic of that will be on brain health. So we are looking forward to seeing you guys all again.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We were thrilled to be able to provide to you this overview session on the 8 dimensions of wellness. We encourage you to assess where you're at and then keep reassessing for the rest of your life. So thank you very much, and feel free to reach out if you have any other further questions or comments, and we hope to see you again soon.
Be well, everyone.
Yes, be well.